Hello, and welcome back to the next part of the extra episode from White Album 2. This takes place after Kazusa's normal route. So Haruki is deep in depression after being kind of left by Kazusa for his own good. Setsuna's trying to heal him, but in the end, her being around him is kind of like a poison, as she herself describes it. So, let's check in on Kazusa after all is said and done and see how she is doing. This is Extra Episode Part 6. Thank you for calling. This is the Japan branch of Yokohama offices. Unfortunately, our business operations are suspended at present. If this is an urgent matter, please call our headquarters in Europe. The number is... How long are things going to be suspended, Miyoko-san? It had only lasted a few seconds, but when I thought about the cost of that wasted international call to Japan, my hand felt hopelessly heavy as I set the receiver down. From the fact that I had tried this 10 times in a row and gotten the answering machine every time for nearly a month, it seemed as though the Japan branch weren't carrying out any business at all. Granted, I started to get that sense vaguely after the third call or so. So to be fair, at this point, as we've mentioned and seen in earlier episodes, Yokohama is very sick. She is not doing well. She is ill. She is clearly not playing the piano. So for the Japan branch office to have work, it would mean Kazusa having to play concerts, which she's still practicing, but she's not doing anything too intense. This is still too soon after the big heartbreak, the big breakup for her. Play Clôture. It had already been a month since I heard the title of that piece, wrung from Mom's throat. I was still spending all my time looking for an orchestra to play it with me. In all likelihood, the fact that I was the one looking for it was the reason it kept taking up all my time. In the beginning, I made use of breaks between lessons, calling the offices of every single orchestra I found in the phone directory, hoping to negotiate. Only to be disappointed. Actually, the fact that my discussions weren't getting anywhere was starting to become a reputation problem for Yokohama offices. How could everyone else just talk to people they don't know without seeing their faces so easily? I didn't understand that world at all. And this is really important because throughout Kazusa Normal, it's often talked about that Kazusa was living in her own world. And, Haruki was being dragged into that own world of only him and her because she wasn't a part of the outside world. She didn't understand, she didn't meld into it. And here, post breaking up with Haruki, she still doesn't understand. She has phone anxiety, she has anxiety talking to strangers, so she's still not in a great place. But the fact that she is trying is something. After that, I went the email route. I spent 3 days setting up a computer, 3 days setting up email and internet, 3 more days thinking about the content of my letter. I sent that email, which had taken me almost 10 days to construct, to the email addresses of every orchestra I found online, and received a storm of questions in response. Questions about money, scheduling, venues. It took me another 3 days to answer, and what came back then was a storm of doubts, anger, and refusals. Apparently, the Japanese little by little way of doing things wasn't very well understood here. And having lived in Japan, I can tell you this is absolutely true. There's so much red tape involved in every little thing that you do in Japan that it's very, very normal for proposals or requests or things like that to take a long time, so long. So it can be very frustrating coming from another part of the world where you can just get things done very quickly. All you need is like a yes from the management and then you're in. In Japan, it doesn't work that way. And so now Kazusa is struggling with that. Emma-san? It's me, Kazusa. And after I'd wasted about half a month through all that, the staff at the headquarters couldn't just stand by and watch anymore, and they single-handedly took on the discussions with orchestras. Yeah, I was calling about, that. Did you find any? That said, this woman, Emma Bergen, who was really just an assistant to Mom, didn't have the knowledge or judgment that Miyoko from the Japanese branch had. As a result, discussions were still rough going, and at present, the number of orchestras sitting at the negotiation table was... still not even one, huh? As you see. Yes. Thanks. If you make any more headway, let me know. Whew. This whole thing had brought home to me that doing performances in Japan had given me some unconscious, mistaken impressions. Kazusa Toma, the name of some runaway pianist, hadn't permeated here at all. In fact, the title of Yoko Toma's daughter didn't get me anywhere either. The people here, when it came to music, took no notice of second-generation talent as a selling point. This world was entirely a meritocracy. And this is another point about Japanese culture. They do take notice of second-generation talent. A lot of things are passed down in Japan, and tradition is very, very important in Japan. So things like restaurants passed down from mother to daughter to granddaughter, that kind of thing is very, very common. And those types of restaurants are revered a lot more in Japan just because it's been passed down. And same with musicians' talent. In other places around the world, you just look at the reviews. You say, oh, it looks like a good place. Oh, it has good ratings, which of course are important as well. But Japan very, very much values the old traditional things. So again, another thing that Kazusa has to grapple with, having abandoned Japan. Driven to my wits' end by all this, I found myself on the verge of dirtying my hands with a forbidden last resort. My most detested, tasteless method, to make use of the country where my flashy signboards, Japanese pianist, Yoko Toma's daughter, made me stand out the most. Right, the editor-in-chief at Ensemble. I'm sure I had a business card. Going by way of the Japan branch, I would make a contract with a Japanese orchestra, call them to Vienna, and hold a concert with a purely Japanese configuration. What am I saying? It's Kaio, obviously. I have been driven to the point of risking a deficit. No, of planning a show that was guaranteed to end in a deficit. By whatever means necessary, I had to play this for Mom. I had to play Clôture. Which is really beautiful, because Mom's dying wish of dying in Japan is gone now, right? But now, Mom's dying wish is to hear Clôture, which has to be played with the orchestra, which requires Kazusa to grow a little bit and to work together with others. So she really needs to fulfill this, even if it does cost her the money. Because it just might be. Huh? Just as I was getting lost in that thought, my laptop screen showed that I had received an email. I checked the email address and found that it was from a local orchestra, a 5-minute walk from here. The first orchestra I'd emailed, though I'd never received a reply. But as soon as I opened the email, my expectations high, it shot them right back down. The writing itself was perfectly polite, but I could already tell that it was a refusal. And beneath that polite refusal was attached a letter of introduction to a different orchestra. That's kind of them, at least. Point her in another correct direction. The Franz Dupré Orchestra? Yeah. Franz Dupré accepted you? Yep. As I had imagined, the moment Mom heard the name of the orchestra, she stiffened. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to do it. It's what you want, right? But Franz, you hate him. Which is, a lot of people in Kazusa's case. Franz Dupré, a French conductor based in Paris. He was in his mid-30s. His ability was certified even in France, where the competition was fierce. The regular performances that he led were always to a full house. In fact, he was booked solid for the next year. He could be called a spirited conductor who had well and truly hit his stride. With his international position and reputation, he was a figure with whom Kazusa Toma, some random Asian pianist, could never compare. I said I'm gonna do it, and I am. Though I'm not budging on the "don't lay one finger on me" clause in my contract terms. He was also a former lover of Mom's, and a sleazebag who had tried to make a move on me before. The obstructions to this contract could be summarized in that one thing. He's young. He's in his 30s, he's in his early 30s, and he was with Kazusa's mom. And at this point, Kazusa's probably 23, 24, I think. I think about 24. So, wow. He was really young when Yoko got with him. And now trying to get with Kazusa, it just grosses me out. It weirds me out. I don't like that very much. Clearly Kazusa doesn't either. Well, that probably won't be a problem. He turns into a different person once a concert starts. Can I trust you on that? Yes, there's no question. There's no way he would try to lay a hand on you this time anyway. The fact that this whole thing got pulled together is probably what? Never mind. So sneaky. So, when is the concert? September 28th. 2 months away. That was the only available day. They even made a note with the promoter and canceled a performance in New York. The fact that I had managed to pin down the Franz Dupre Orchestra before the end of the year was evidently nothing short of miraculous. That was what Emma had said after 3 speechless minutes on the phone. I mean, that is pretty amazing. And Yoko's hesitation here is supposed to kind of insinuate that it's probably a favor to her since, everybody knows she's not doing so hot right now. All right, I'll be sure to live long enough for that. Come hell or high water. Yeah, do that. It'll be the best concert I've ever put on. 2 months left, in any case. I would master cloture by then, whatever it took. I would give that to Mom. I would make it in time by whatever means necessary. Thanks, old man. Sorry I have to go before you do. Ooh. So one thing that Maruto-san, the guy who wrote this and who wrote White Album, does is he leads you in one direction and then kind of reverses it, right? So our expectation was normal. Yoko-san was sick. She thinks she's getting a favor. Now they're like, oh, it is that, but it's from somebody else, presumably, because she's saying, thanks, old man. So, interesting little bit of foreshadowing there. So, moving on, we are going to check out extra episode part 7, checking in on the Ogisos. Summer continued, the heat grew even more intense. Intense enough that I stopped caring about the blue of the sky, how high it soared, everything. Setsuna. The days that made me pour rivers of sweat just by standing outside. The nights that wouldn't let me sleep, no matter how much I tossed and turned, sapped mercilessly at my stamina. No. Was that really all I was losing? Setsuna, I'm coming in. What's wrong? What's going on with you? Why would you cover yourself completely when it's this hot? You'll get heat stroke. I guess. Good morning. Morning? Do you have any idea what time it is? Don't you have work today? Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you. I put in a request yesterday and got the day off. Really? Yeah, it started last night. It's a little heavy this month. Why didn't you tell me yesterday then? Your breakfast got cold. Sorry, I don't need it today. You don't have to make me lunch either. Setsuna? The pain is really bad. I don't have any appetite at all right now. Are you okay? It's fine. If I can just get through today. It's really just menstrual cramps? Yes, it is. You don't have to say it so bluntly. Which is kind of funny because the way Setsuna and her mom usually talk to each other, especially if you play through the game in Japanese, you'll realize they say things to each other without actually using the word for it, if that makes sense. So instead of saying, like one instance, one of the ones that's repeated is, pass me it. And then Setsuna's like, what's it? I don't know what it is. And she's like, it, that thing, go get me that thing. And they're talking about the thermometer. And so Setsuna's mom's doing it here again, not actually saying the word for it. And now Setsuna's getting mad when she does use the word for it. Just a cute mother-daughter quip that they have. Give me a day and I'll be fine. I'll go to work tomorrow. Just let me be for today, okay? If you say so, I believe you, but that's the situation right now. Good night. But if there's actually anything wrong, actually, even if there's even a small sign or symptom, tell me, okay? I know. I couldn't tell her. Sleep well then. I'm going to be out today. See you later. Really, I'll be fine. I can handle this much. If I did that, Mom would tell Dad. And Dad would get overly worried about me. Which is normal for a family, so the fact that you're having to hide your own feelings and emotions from your own family means you're really not in a good place. All right, you better stay still today. No popping up and saying, oh, I'm all better now, and running off to the usual place. Yes, I know. He wouldn't let me go to the usual place anymore. Once I was sure that Mom had made it all the way downstairs, I finally crawled out of the covers I had buried myself under. My pajamas were sweaty and disgusting. How strange. Was the AC not working well enough? Everything would become obvious on laundry day at this rate. I would have to wash them myself while Mom was out. Last night, I had been assailed the entire night by an unpleasant sensation, as though all the fluid in my body were pouring out. In fact, it still hadn't stopped. No, it wasn't just last night. Every night for the past few days had been like this. Also, that's a disgusting description of sweat. I don't know what it is with White Album 2 and the way they word things, but whenever they talk about sweat, they make it sound like waterfalls of sweat, like disgusting amounts of bodily fluids. It's so weird. It's hot. I tried to raise my body up slightly, but I fell right back down into bed. My head was dizzy, my vision was blurry. Above all, I couldn't find any energy. Even so, I had managed to get up until yesterday. That morning, I had managed to get dressed and go to work, just like always. Though my efficiency in the work I did was scattered at best. I have to call the office. What I'd said about making a request at work was, of course, an on-the-spot lie. I simply hadn't been able to get up. Why? What was going on with me? I'm fine. No, it was just summer fatigue. If I rested for a day, I'd get back to normal. After all, tomorrow was Friday. I just needed to go to work for one day, and then it would be the weekend. Something would work out. Once the weekend came, I would see him. If I made it through one more day, I would see Haruki-kun again. I knew he must be waiting for me. I had to make it through this. Which, if you can't even take care of yourself, you can't take care of another person. Even if you feel like you're taking care of them, like Setsuna often does, Haruki can see how much it's taking a toll on her, and it actually ends up being a negative. So you really, really, really need to care for yourself first. And that's what Setsuna doesn't understand. The train bound for Onjuku will be arriving at track 1 shortly. Please remain behind the white line. And the weekend that I had awaited so anxiously arrived just a little late. Half a day late. Normally, I would go straight to his apartment after leaving work on Friday. Right now, however, it was 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. After I spent Thursday resting because I wasn't well, my family wasn't going to let me stay over somewhere else on Friday night. And so I was forced to convalesce at home that night. Okay, and this is dumb because I mentioned again how I really hate how Setsuna's family doesn't let her do things because she's an adult. Especially if she's just having menstrual cramps. The fact that they don't let her go out the next day is dumb. Because that's not like a long-term illness or anything. That's not contagious. Really, really. I get it. Her family's worried. In this situation, I guess I understand because they know it's not just menstrual cramps. But at the same time, she's an adult. She needs to make her own decisions. And as it happened, I felt well this morning. I wasn't sweating, my head wasn't hurting, and above all else, I slept well. Because I had nothing to worry about anymore. Right. Before I got to his apartment, I had some shopping to take care of. Food and necessities enough for the upcoming week. Come to think of it, the laundry detergent had just run out too. So, once I got to his apartment, I would make lunch, eat it together with him, then do the laundry and clean, and then it would be time for dinner. Okay. Assuming you have lunch at noon, and maybe you have dinner at 5 or 6, it does not take 5 or 6 hours to do one person's laundry and clean one person's tiny Japanese apartment. It does not. That is silly. Hopefully, they can have conversation or do something fun in between, because that is just silly. She's a maid. What is this? What is this daily plan? You go see your boyfriend, you clean for him, you do his laundry, you cook for him, and that's it? That's the only things you're thinking about? After that, I was hoping to have a talk with him, if possible, about what I had done this week, about how he had felt this week. Chatting, listening, communicating, nice and leisurely. All right, well, at least there's that. The train at track 1 is departing. Please stand clear of the closing doors. Yes, just like that. We might only have a little bit of time to spend together this week, but if we could make it through the next one, we had the Bon. Okay, this is weirdly translated. This is supposed to be Obon holidays, and Obon in Japan is like it's a good holiday for like visiting family and really spending time with loved ones. Calling it Bon holidays is very strange. Then we could spend an even longer time together. The start of a happy, peaceful time when the heat of the summer and the restlessness of my work would all be dispelled. My heart leapt. Well, at least somebody's excited for now. My heart was supposed to leap. Huh? Something was wrong. It was hard to breathe. I wouldn't stop sweating. How strange. I'd been fine this morning. I had enough stamina to shake Mom off when she tried to stop me leaving the house. When I burst out in sweat as I neared the station, I assumed it was just from being under this blazing sun. Once I got under the shade of the platform, once I got onto the air-conditioned train, the sweat ought to have gone away. And yet, as I sat here, shivering because all the sweat all over my body had taken the heat away, I couldn't get onto the train that I would be getting off a single station later. Whew. The train arrived. I tried to stand up, and suddenly I had a horrible feeling, as though my whole body had gone numb. As my body sat tied to the bench, my head alone frantically yelled, "Move! Move!" Wait, what? Was I misunderstanding something? The sweating, The shortness of breath, the fear of the crowds, my inability to board the train. Was it my own body rejecting the place I was trying to go? Okay, now this is nice because, as I mentioned in the last episode, or maybe last episode, Maruto-san loves writing in parallels. And this is exactly the same type of feeling which Haruki had in some of his routes when he was trying to go to work, but he just couldn't leave Kazusa, especially in Kazusa Normal. He couldn't leave her. The thought of being anywhere except with her made him just ridiculously ill. But then as soon as he got back with Kazusa, he felt fine. And here it's a parallel, but it's the opposite. She's about to go see Haruki, and this horrible illness just takes over her entire body. Interesting how that's written. My own impossible guess now summoned a wave of nausea. It couldn't be. I had looked forward to this for the entire week. My greatest happiness was being with Haruki-kun, looking at his sleeping face, etching his few words into my head, gazing at the small changes in his expression, watching over his recovery from right beside him. But was all of that my ego? Haruki-kun always seemed to be in pain with me there. His sleeping face was full of anguish, his words piercing into himself, his expression always full of sadness. I always observed his despair from right beside him. Of course, with this plague appearing to him every week, he couldn't possibly get better. Was God trying to keep me away from him then? Because that would bring him greater relief? Because I was a burden on him? Was God trying to protect him? No. Thinking like that was just an ugly excuse. A foolish justification for my body's refusal to go along with my emotions. No, but it was so hot. And what would happen if I did go to the apartment where I didn't belong, where being next to him wouldn't make him whisper words of love to me, embrace me, help me? What was the meaning of unrewarded love? Were you the only one who knew? Help me, Kazusa. Ooh, the goosebumps. Interesting, because now she's kind of, in a different way, but she's kind of understanding what it's like to love Haruki but not feel that love back. Even though he's not rejecting her because, he doesn't love her. He's rejecting her because he's still so rattled with guilt and so heartbroken over Kazusa that he can't. Physically, he cannot bring himself to love Setsuna the way she needs to be loved at this point. I'm back. I opened the front door to the usual silence. A silence in which only my own voice rang out, quite loudly. The AC feels so nice. I never want to go outside again. However, the cool air wrapped around the apartment faintly asserted the existence of its owner. It is really scorching out there. Just unbearable. Yeah. That owner was sitting at the table today, fiddling with his laptop. I glanced at his face just to check. He looked pale, but not pallid. Nothing too serious. Yes, maybe he was doing decently today. Oh boy, maybe he was. What do you want for lunch? I knew I ran a little late, so would some simple somen be okay? Or should I throw my back into it? I'm really fine with anything. That's no fun. Well, okay. I'll do something simple for lunch and then whip up something amazing tonight. Pork was cheap, so I bought plenty of it. Actually, since I do have all this pork, maybe I'll slice some of it up cold on this somen. Yeah, that sounds great. Setsuna. Oh, but that would mean meat for both lunch and dinner. Maybe I should come up with something different for tonight then. Hey, Setsuna. What do you think, Haruki-kun? for lunch. What's going on with you today? Huh? Oh, yeah, sorry I wasn't able to come yesterday. I've been working overtime all week. I mean, work has started to pile up a little. Okay, don't lie. One of the biggest problems between Setsuna and Haruki is Haruki lied so often. And now Setsuna's picked up the habit and is lying to cover up the fact that she's been ill, which is not good. And obviously Haruki notices something's wrong already. That's not what I'll have it finished soon. I hope you don't mind a little wait. Wait, no. Now that I thought about it, showing off how busy I was would only alienate him. No matter how excited my heart might be, I couldn't get carried away. And having to walk on eggshells like this is so unhealthy. Of course, you want to be considerate about other people's feelings, always. That's a given. But the fact that she's feeling like she has to lie in order to make him feel better, in order to get him to recover, is a slippery slope. You don't want to be on that too long, because then you end up becoming a compulsive liar like Haruki is. Or was. I think is. So, before we get deeper into this Haruki and Setsuna visit, I think we will stop there for now. So, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Extra Episode, and I'll be back with the next one shortly. Until then, hope you take care. See you!